Coming up on this week's episode of CEO Yourself.
It takes a little bit of courage. It might take a bit of a push, but it is totally possible to create those opportunities. And if you don't get a yes, then you get that feedback and build that onto the next opportunity that you need to create for yourself. Creating that moment, creating that opportunity for myself, I actually made it easier for them to say yes. It can take some years, but I think it's those moments of kind of really listening to your deep inner self. And there'll be clues. Your life will give you clues along the way, and don't ignore those clues.
Tobi Asare is a board executive, speaker, author of The Blend, and founder of My Bump Pay, an online platform supporting women navigating motherhood in the workplace. She is a passionate advocate for women's rights and supports our family and career journeys. In this week's episode, we deep dive her CEO superpower, creating opportunities. Tobi, welcome to CEO Yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you here because I want to explore everything that you're doing for women. But I want to start by introducing the listener to My Bump Pay. It is a platform I so wish I'd had 16 months ago when I had Xanthi. And you are creating a place to support women to know their rights and to help them break through the glass ceiling, utilising your online platform as they navigate motherhood and career. Tell us how and why this came to fruition.
Oh, thank you. I feel like you summarised it so perfectly and eloquently. I need to borrow that. But it was 2017. I was pregnant with my first son, and I happened to be the first person in that office location from a global organisation that was actually going on maternity leave. And I wrestled with so many elements during that period. One, the fact that we had statutory maternity pay at that particular time, that was definitely something I knew that I wanted to speak up on and ideally get changed, which I did, which is amazing. And then secondly, I felt I had all these questions, but the real question that I had was, how am I going to make it work? I am really ambitious and I'm terrified at the same time of stepping away from this career that I've worked so hard to build. Like, I built a team of 40 people. I'd grown that business. I had done so many amazing things at that point in my career, but I also knew that I really wanted this family that was, that I'm going on this journey to go on. So I actually thought, let's start researching the topic and having lots of conversations with friends. The more I researched, the more I became obsessed with this topic of like, right, how do we actually do it? So I actually started talking about money first, because money is such an important lever. And I was learning a lot about money as I was really pushing for that pay policy to be changed. And as I started talking about money online, lots of people were asking me lots of questions about, right, flexible working, or how does this work, or what are your thoughts on this? And I thought there is so much here that we need to be talking about. It's more than just money. There's a real army of women who, and even just parents who are really ambitious, but who want a family and don't want to necessarily give up their career or just looking for support. So it started 2018, and I'm just so proud of where it is today.
So all these years later, have you found the answer? What is the perfect solution?
Have I found the answer? No. If I had found the answer, I think I'd be really rich. But I think I'm getting closer to what I think could be an approach. And it's part of the reason why I wrote the book, which is called The Blend. And I think that's the approach that I'm finding is working really well for me. Not perfect, because I think with every season you've got to change things a little bit. But I think that blend for me it's just really forgiving. It allows me to take different elements of what I need based on the season that I'm in, or based on what I'm trying to achieve, or based on what's happening for me and my family, and actually appreciating that there isn't a perfect answer. Every day, every week, every quarter might look a little bit different. And so that's why I love this whole idea of the blend, is that it can always change based on what you need, rather than thinking, oh, I've got to have the perfect answer.
For the listener out there, this book is a must read. I certainly have and continue to struggle with what the perfect balance, no, there's no perfect balance, what the balance looks like in terms of navigating motherhood and career. I will come back to the book, but I felt universally that last night, in the middle of the night, Xanthi is such a wonderful sleeper and she was awake all night, and it was exhausting and taxing and stressful. And I knew I had a big, important day, and yet she wanted me. How do you encourage the woman out there listening who also has a big important day the next day and is up all night to prioritize? Like what is the sensation where you know which kind of lane to take?
Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it? And I always want us. In some ways, it's honouring that we play such an important role for our children. But I also think I always encourage people, where you can be, don't always be the childcare martyr. And it depends on your living situation. It depends on your setup. If you have a partner, it might be encouraging them to also chip in that moment. And listen, they may also have a really big day the next day, but how can you split it in that moment where that you're both sharing the load? Or it could be, for example, if you have to share the load or if you have to take on the majority of that night shift, how are you making adjustments for the next day? It could be the next day that you go and you really tackle that busy day, and it's not easy, trust me. But it could be straight after that, you're ordering a takeaway so that you're not thinking about cooking that evening. Like, what are the little things that you can do to just take the pressure off yourself, even if you can't take the pressure off yourself in that moment and you still feel like you need to be there? Have a think about, where else can I take the pressure off? You don't have to be everything to everyone all the time in those little moments. Like, I know, for example, there are moments where I look at my day and I just think that is impossible. So yeah, I am going to get that takeaway, or I am going to call my mum and see if she can pop round, or I am going to take a walk once the kids have gone down to bed because I just need a moment to myself.
And not being afraid, I guess, to strip back social life or those unimportant meetings, like whatever you can do to survive the day.
Yeah.
But speaking of taking pressure off, the chapter that I loved the most was where you explored how to move away from mum guilt. Can you give the listener a few tips and tricks about how to do that?
Oh, this topic, right? Mum guilt. Oh, it can eat us up. I think the first thing I always say to people is just to not necessarily run away from it. If you are feeling deep feelings of guilt, almost just accept it. I think the worst thing that can happen, and I've definitely been there, is where you're trying to kind of just push it to the back of your mind because you think you have to be this super mum that is super solid and doesn't waver or show any emotion and just shows that, right, you know what, I'm on top of this, I've got this. But sometimes the reality is it does get to us and we do find it really hard and we're not alone. So I think the first thing is to accept it. Don't just kind of push it away and push it to the background. The second thing I would probably say is just really explore where that guilt is coming from. Often I think that guilt is coming from our idea of this super mum. I know for me that I felt like I was from a really big family. I had lots of little cousins everywhere. So that as soon as I stepped into motherhood, I thought, right, I'm just going to be an amazing mum and I'm going to know everything and have it all figured out. And the minute that I realized that I didn't and I felt like I was falling short, that's where I think a lot of this pressure of this mum guilt really came from. So sometimes I think we have to tear up this image of this perfect mother because it doesn't exist. And sometimes you have to think about it as basic as, am I happy? Is my child fed, clothed? Do they have a roof over their heads? Yes. If you're doing all of those things and you are meeting your expectations, you're meeting your obligations as a mother, and therefore there is nothing to feel guilty about. And then lastly, I also really encourage women and parents that if you're going out there to provide for your family, that's a really important role that you play for your children. And therefore, if you can't be there at that particular nursery drop-off or pick-up or sports day because you are providing for your family, that is nothing to feel guilty about. I just feel so strongly in that particular point. You know, our modern day setup is that for many families and households, both parents have to work. Mm-hmm. And that's a really honourable role to play for your little ones. And now that my kids are older, 5 and 7, or 5 and almost 7, I can see these little glimmers of hope. I can see that they're sometimes, not all the time, but I can see that they're really proud of me when I go out and do what I have to do, be it the book or go to work.
I think as long as you're finding those meaningful moments with your children, you know, maybe you do miss school drop-off or pick-up, but you're there at dinner and you're present and your phone is away and you're talking about your days and you're having that special time together.
Yeah, absolutely. And we try and plan it as much as possible. Again, I'm definitely not perfect, but I know this has been a busy week where I've been in the office most of the week. And actually, we've got a really fun weekend planned. So I said to my son, like, we've got this play date plan, we've got that play date plan. And he cannot wait, almost to the extent that, he's swapping video notes with his friend that he's going to meet, and they can't wait to kind of do all these different activities. And that makes me so happy. I feel happy that I've had my time during the week to do what I need to do, but I feel really excited to spend time with the two of them this weekend.
So what I love about your CEO superpower is that you have leveraged a potentially difficult situation to create an opportunity. Talk to us about why you chose creating opportunities as your CEO superpower.
I had to really think about this question, and it was a conversation with my husband that really helped me to pull it out. When I think about the job that I have now, because I still work full time and I still love doing that. When I think of the exact role that I have now, it came out of a conversation where I don't know where I found the courage from, but I was in an airport with our group CEO, and I just said to him, I really want this senior leadership role. What's your advice for me? And in that moment, he said, lots. And it was like literally like nuggets of gold. And my brain was just like ping, 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 ping. So, and he said basically at the end of all of those different tips, he said, I think you should write it down and you should present it to your CEO. And I got on that plane and I literally just wrote this presentation of why I thought this particular role should be created and why I thought I'd be exactly the right person to do it. And as soon as I landed, I sent an email to her EA to say, can I have time with her as soon as you can make time available? She said, yeah. And we had this meeting and it was really well received. And I think the beauty about that moment is that, when I had that first conversation with the group CEO, I wasn't quite sure that I had the confidence to do that role that I was pitching for. But he helped me define that inner confidence that I probably had deep down inside because I just literally went up to him in the first place. And I think by creating that moment, creating that opportunity for myself, I actually made it easier for them to say yes. Because I think often in the workplace, bosses and leaders, they want to advance people, they want to promote people, they want to give people opportunities, but it's quite hard because there's lots of different things going on. You've got lots of different responsibilities. So the moment that somebody comes to you and makes it really clear and writes it down, you're just like, oh, thank you. That's helped me to have the right conversations that I need to have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Be proactive.
If
you're out there and you think you deserve a promotion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think I've probably spoken about that publicly, but I think it is important for me to do so because I think it's important for people to realise it takes a little bit of courage. It might take a bit of a push, but it is totally possible to create those opportunities. And if you don't get a yes, then you get that feedback and build that onto the next opportunity that you need to create for yourself.
The worst that can happen is that you get a no.
Yeah.
On that point, I do believe that it requires a confident mindset and courage to create opportunities. There's a practicality around it. How have you practically created opportunities for yourself?
Sometimes I have to write things down. Like and I did this with my team actually this week. We've been so busy the first half of the year, and I think we have probably felt that we weren't making the progress that we wanted to as a team, but we literally took 10 minutes and we wrote every single big project that we have nailed this year, or even just completed this year so far. I think we all sat there and we were like, we've actually done a really good job. And I do that for myself as well. I take those moments and I write those things down, or I take pictures of moments that have been really significant. And I look back sometimes at various different moments in the year and I think, actually, there's a lot to be proud of here. And sometimes that's where my confidence comes from. And that's how I then think, okay, right, I can now create this next opportunity for myself because look at everything I've done, or look at everything my team has achieved. But often that's not enough. I think for me, sometimes I have to, like I have a coach, I have a leadership coach. So she's incredible because she knows me very well. She knows my strengths and my weaknesses, and she knows that I can be quite hard on myself. So she's also a brilliant source of inspiration and encouragement to me, as is my husband. Again, he probably knows me better than I know myself in some instances. So he's amazing for that. So sometimes we can find it for ourselves. We can do really practical things, and other times the practical thing is getting support or getting help.
You've made major career pivots from law to finance to now entrepreneurialism. What has inspired you to take those jumps, and how would you encourage the listener to follow their gut and have transitions in their career?
It is a little bit of that gut feeling, I think, in terms of inspiring myself to kind of take those jumps. When I was following the legal path that I went to law school, I did my LPC. I got to a stage where it was time to apply for, your big legal career job, your first job. And there was this gut instinct that, and to be fair, I got a rejection at that particular stage, a really big rejection that I was not expecting. And I thought, oh, this job is mine, et cetera, et cetera. Once I got that, I thought, maybe this isn't the moment for me. Maybe this isn't the thing for me. And I've kind of known it all along. So that was definitely, I think, a gut feeling. And then the next move into financial services, and then after financial services, when I'd had my kids, again, I got this gut instinct that I could do more. I could do something slightly different. I could combine my creative skills and my ability to be really commercial and find a role that works really well for me. So then I made the leap into media, but all whilst kind of running my bump pay on the side. So I think it can take some years, but I think it's those moments of kind of really listening to your deep inner self. And there'll be clues. Your life will give you clues along the way, and don't ignore those clues.
I say it's like building a house. It's always going to take twice as long and cost twice as much going and starting your own businesses.
Yes, yeah.
You wear so many hats. Can you talk us through what you are doing these days? Because there's so much going on, from board executive to author to my bump pay. How do you prioritize your week and the tasks at hand?
Yeah, lots of different hats. So I work for a media agency, which is one of the largest media agencies in the UK. So I run new business, marketing and agency reputation for that agency, as well as sitting on the leadership team. We have a board there. I'm really proud to be a board trustee of Copperfield, which is a well-known breast cancer charity. Author with the book, and also running my bump pay. It can get exhausting at times, I won't lie. But I love all of those experiences because they really help me to grow and learn. And one thing that I started doing recently is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. In the book, he talks about how you can plan for your week, but plan against your goals. And you can literally just Google a Stephen Covey 7 Habits weekly planner. That is quite a mouthful.
We'll link it in the show notes for those listening.
And I literally have it in my bag. But effectively, it gets you to kind of list out the different roles that you hold. So I will literally write down, I'm a wife, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm an employee, I'm a board trustee, for example. And then for each of those different responsibilities, you can write down what your goals are. So, for example, as a wife, my goal might be to have what we call chair time once a week, where we literally sit in chairs in our bedroom and we just talk. So that could be a goal. And then looking at that goal, you think, okay, where can I fit it in the week? And that for me has been such a useful tool, because very often week to week I can see I've got way too much going on. So then I use that piece of paper to then think, okay, right, how do I prioritize? Do I take this out here? Do I put this there? Even things like I put the names of the friends that I'm going to call that week or send a voice note to make sure that I'm checking in and doing my job as a friend. It's never perfect, but that helps me to, I guess, blend all the different roles and responsibilities that I have throughout the week.
When do you take the time to do that? On a Sunday?
So I do that on a Sunday.
Yeah. I was just thinking we as a small team should do that on a Friday and set up the week ahead, because it is so helpful to know what everyone is doing and what everyone's up to, and to remember to take the time for those things that do truly matter.
Absolutely. And even as a team, recently I sat down with my 2 team leaders and we went through kind of like a values exercise, values and goals and priorities. They were really clear on mine. I got really clear on theirs. And also for me as a leader, it's really important that I help them to achieve the goals that they have for themselves, so I can start to put maybe some of their goals onto my weekly plan as well, so that everyone feels like they've got the right momentum that they've got in their careers.
Looping back to maternity leave policies, I'm hugely passionate about this, and I don't think it's done well often. I think that the statutory maternity policies are frankly wrong, and I feel as if for women, whether they go back to work very quickly like I did, or even going back after a year, from being at home for a whole year with your child to back to work full time from that Monday morning, I would imagine would be incredibly stressful and taxing on both the mother and the child. You had a gentle transition back to work. What would you advise to those business leaders out there and business owners who do want to implement, a practical and yet supportive solution for women? What do you think is the right return to work?
It's so different for everybody, and I think the first thing I would say is to not make any assumptions whatsoever. Like, every parent who returns back to work might want to do it a little bit differently, but also have that constant dialogue, because somebody may think, oh, right, I'm ready, I'm going back into work, but actually they find as they go through that process, it's maybe not as easy as they first thought it was. So even just having little check-ins along the way to make sure, are you still okay? Are you coping? Do you have all the support that you need? I would also say to that, in summary, don't be afraid to kind of tailor your approach, but have a wealth of policies that are flexible, that people can pick and choose from. So give them the option to maybe do a phased return, or encourage them to do a phased return if they want to, for example. Maybe give them the option, if it's appropriate, to do compressed hours, or maybe give them the option to think about how they structure their time with clients, especially if you are in a client-facing role. How can you communicate to your clients so that they have the right expectations of also somebody coming back to work and back into the flow of the day-to-day. So I think there are lots of different things, but I think my biggest message would be, don't make the assumption that everybody wants to do it in the same way. Everyone is really, really different, but think about the different flexible options that could be afforded to people, but also think about the different ways that you can offer support. So some companies are amazing and they offer a maternity career return coach, for example, or setting up a group. It could be like a bit of an ERG, where it's a group of people, like-minded people who are coming together who have maybe returned recently, so they can just set up a WhatsApp group or a Teams chat, so they just feel that they have the support. And I'd say none of these activities are wasted. You'll endear loyalty far beyond what you think may be possible, and those people will be more productive, more engaged, and happier to be working for you as an organisation. So there is absolutely a win-win to all of this.
Because I definitely feel it's an evolving emotion. So I could never have predicted, even up until the day I gave birth, what my needs were and what the needs were of my family. And in the beginning, it's such a whirlwind experience. It's consistently changing how often I need to work and how often I need to be at home, and what that structure looks like. So to make the decision on someone else's behalf seems almost barbaric, in my opinion. And as you said, it does need to be constantly evolving with that mother.
Yeah, absolutely. With the mother, with the father, whoever's involved. And I think not as much as I would like, but we definitely are seeing more kind of non-dominant parents also taking more time off as well. And where people like that make the requests to want to have time off or return back to work in a particular way, I think organisations should definitely be all ears and listen as much as possible.
You are such an inspirational CEO yourself, woman, because you have a huge, vibrant career, but you are an advocate for women and you live by the morals that you're suggesting. What is your key message to the listener out there as she transitions into motherhood, or, like me, is constantly transitioning into this new role? What would you say to her?
I'm just so passionate about women, whatever life stage that they're at, never feeling that they have to limit themselves or play small or remove themselves from an opportunity because of a life stage or a personal circumstance. we can get to what we want to get to for ourselves, for our lives, for our families, like whatever it is that's the big dream or the big goal or the big hope. We may have to take a slightly different route, but it's absolutely possible. Be kind to yourself, be patient, know that you can't do it alone. The same way that lots of people say it takes a village to raise a child. I'm a big believer it takes a village to build your career or to build your business at the same time. So you can do it. You might have to do it a bit differently, and you might have to do it with lots of help, and that's more than okay.
Thank you. Those words are so beautiful, and ones that I'll return back to as a reminder. Now, we always close with the same question, which is, what is your legacy piece of advice, the piece of advice that you would want to be remembered by?
Gosh. I think it would be, she tried. Yeah, I don't know where I may be in 10, 20, 30 years time, 50 years time, however long I'm, blessed to live. But I want my children to look at me and think, she tried really hard. I want my family to look at me and think, yeah, she tried really hard. She gave it everything she could, and she learned along the way. So yeah, it's a big question, but it's a good question. So thank you.
And I think this beautiful book you've written will help women to try their hardest as well, and to not let any of the hurdles get in their way, but to kind of see them as opportunities and jump over them and to become the CEO of their lives and the best version of themselves. It's such a meaningful piece of work that you've put out there, and I'm so grateful that you've done it for us.
Oh, thank you. Beyond proud of it. Still a bit of a whirlwind. I still can't believe that I actually wrote it, but thank you for your beautiful words.
So we will link in the show notes where you can buy the book, but where can the listener find you, Tobi?
Super straightforward, I hope, which is just my bump pay on Instagram. And yeah, the book is available in most places where you can get books from.
Amazing. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you.
It would mean the world to me if you would share today's episode with someone you feel would enjoy it. And don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and leave a comment.